What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the World Wide Web of Lending. I appreciate you tuning in to our podcast, Connected to the Web, Web being me, two B's. I've got a badass guest here today. I am so lucky that he is one of my first guests on the podcast because the whole idea, which most of you know if you're already watching, is to talk to business owners in the community and just create a space where we can share what we need, what we want, and then who we are. But this guy here, you're going to learn very quickly, is kind of like the thread that binds a lot of the people and the businesses we're going to talk about. So I want to know about you, the man first, buddy, but go and introduce yourself, Ryan, and tell the audience who you are and what you do, my friend.
Yeah, so Joe, thanks for having me today. My name is Ryan Gallo, the owner of the Gallo Group based in Harford County. I've been born and raised here. My wonderful wife and I, we live in Forest Hill. So right down the road, I've been in Harford County my entire life. I have two bonus kids, and we just had our first daughter a couple months ago.
Bonus kids, awesome. Cool word, man.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Thank you. So I help people build businesses and help them access capital, navigate the SBA ecosystem, and I'd love to continue to share with you more.
So the limited conversations that we've had, I've had a business for a couple years. I work in the business field. I learned more in a half hour with Ryan than I learned putting my nose on the internet in the last 4 or 5 years. Dude, I don't even know where to start, but let's hear about your family a little bit. So you told me that you've been over here for about 2 years, right? So you built a house a couple years ago?
Yeah, Forest Hill, yep.
Okay. Where'd you guys live before that?
In Pilesville.
Okay.
And then also in Airville, Pennsylvania for 2 years while we were building the house.
Okay. Where's Airville? What county is that?
It's in York County, PA.
Okay.
Right over the line, right about 10 minutes past Delta.
Locals call that SYC, Southern York County.
Yeah, so my neighbors were Amish. We had a great time out there, but we needed to get back closer to Bel Air for work.
Awesome. All right, so I feel like the best place to start is just to open up with why you wanted to start this venture that you did.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a story behind where that connected to you.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people are going to relate to that. So you are who you are. You're doing your thing, trying to live your life. You had this calling. Tell me that moment where it's like, I think I need to do this. Kind of think back to that moment and help walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you've heard of the SBA before, the Small Business Administration.
Yep. Sure.
Right, so they're on the federal level. I've worked under their programs that they have for the last 11 years.
Okay.
And throughout my career there, I've worked with about close to 2,000 small businesses now. Most of them being in Harford County, some throughout the Mid-Atlantic as well.
Did you say 2,000?
Yeah, about 2,000 businesses over
Dude,
11 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I know a lot of people, met a lot of different contacts and resources, and all walks of life from various industries, from something like dog walking and butcher shops to high tech and government contractors and everything in between. And throughout my career there, I've helped launch about 250 new companies, create about 1,000 new jobs, and raised about 70 million in financing, with I would say about 90+% of them being pre-venture / startups, meaning that they didn't have any years in business, right? They didn't have tax returns. And from what I learned within my role there, it was more advice driven. And I would constantly ask, like, hey, Ryan, can you help us write business plans? Can you help us manage this loan process? And always had to say no, right? We're not allowed to do that kind of work while working under those types of programs. And that was where I formed the Gallo Group, right? There was a big need for small businesses in the community that needed that hands-on support.
Absolutely.
Needed that expert guidance. And right, they're a mechanic, right? I was actually just on a phone call with a mechanic on my way over here.
Okay.
I helped him start a mobile auto shop a few months ago. He's been doing great, and he's already ready to expand, right? But he knows cars, right? He doesn't know finance, the startup process, business planning, etc. And then I'm like, I'm not a mechanic, but I understand this side of things. So let's take your education, my education, combine this together, and we can build a solid strategic plan and access you to capital to start and grow your business. So with that hands-on support, we've had a really great track record just over our last year, little over a year of doing this and helping our clients get funded and navigating them through the entire process, from what's a sole proprietor to how do I file an LLC? What's this crazy beneficial ownership information report that we're hearing about? How do I write a business plan? How do I build a website? How do I access that capital? And my goal is I can typically get people funded between $50,000 to $5.5 million throughout the same process. Now, of course, there's various qualifying factors that are required behind that,
Yeah, yeah.
especially on the top tier of that level of financing. But
You mean I can't just get $5 million?
we can figure out a way.
That's it. We're done. Caught.
But the ingredients that all go into it are essentially the same.
Yeah.
And my goal was to take the business and financial strategy to work all of that together, combine their past performance / experience in the industry, and we have a good rate of getting them funded. And then from there, we help them scale.
I feel like the answer you just gave me, we should be sitting in a $1 million boardroom with like all these suits around us. But like, you're just a regular guy, man. Like, you look like me.
Jeans and a t-shirt.
If I would have closed my eyes and heard that, I'm like, this guy is a superpower corporate dude. But like, you're not, because you're working with small business.
I'm not a fan of wearing a tie. When I started my business, I'm like, I don't want to have to wear a tie anymore. That's not who I am. And also, it helps me relate back to my client. Right, we have contractors that are doing concrete work, HVAC, sound systems, right, the whole gauntlet, and they traditionally don't trust the guy in the suit and tie, and that's where we've just built these great relationships. I'm a local guy here in the community. We live here, we support here, we go to church here, and I want to see the community thrive and grow of where I'm raising my kids in. So if I can help do that through business and finance, it's going to create a better future and environment for them. So maybe it's a selfish reason as to why I'm doing it. But at the end of the day, I love small business. I love entrepreneurship. I love Harford County. And want to see what we can do to continue to make this thrive.
So let's get a couple of quick definition terms for people who might be in this space but might not know these terms. So let's go as simple as SBA, Small Business Administration, right? What makes a small business as opposed to a big business? Because I've come across and people think they're not a small business or think they are and they're not. So give me a really vanilla definition. If I'm somebody that wants to start a business, what does small business mean to you?
So about 99.9% of businesses in the United States are small business.
That's huge.
Yeah. So typically it goes by employee count and revenue value.
Okay.
And the majority of you are going to be small businesses. Even if you're buying into a franchise, that corporate entity may not be a small business at that phase, but you buying and opening up your own location that maybe only has 15 to 20 employees, you're still a small business, right? You have the franchise agreement to operate your own small business utilizing their brand recognition. So again, the majority of you listening here, you're starting a small business, and therefore you could potentially qualify for the SBA-backed financing to help you get started when you may not think you can. Just got to know where to go and how to navigate it. And that's what we specialize in.
So when I'm making a business, does it matter if I have certain letters behind my name, like Inc. or LLC or
It does in
SP?
a way. It does in a way. So that's a really great question.
Okay.
So the most common form of business structure in the United States is a sole proprietor.
Okay.
And that means that you are the business.
It's me.
So let's say you have been washing cars on the side and you've earned over $600 in income. You're technically a sole proprietor. You should be paying self-employment tax.
Yeah.
So many of these folks don't realize that they are a sole proprietor. All right. So therefore, that's what makes it the most common entity in the United States. But in order for you to grow, if you want to take your business to that next level, if you want to receive financing, we do need to look at a corporate structure. And that's where the majority of my clients do decide to go as an LLC. Now, I'm not an attorney. I'm not supposed to go through the biggest pros and cons and what structure you should go
as. Why.
But at the end of the day, the majority do go as an LLC. You have that limited liability protection. And that way, the actual loan can be issued to the business and not you personally. And that's where we start to separate personal and business financials, which is the way we want to go, right? We don't want to intermingle that. That can cause a lot of potential liability and issues in the future. We got to create that separation. And we can help guide you through that, how to do it. Like, did you know it really only takes less than 20 minutes to file an LLC in the state of Maryland, and it's under $200?
20 minutes.
Remember that. Some people are out there paying $5,000+ to have an LLC
Attorneys.
Filed. You don't have to go that route. Again, you can do this on yourself, and it's not very difficult. The state of Maryland does have an easy process for it.
I think also, and I'm kind of like, as you're going, my brain's going 1,000 miles an hour because I wish, and we talked about being live, I wish we could have some feedback, and I'm going to have a lot of questions from you being here, I'm sure. But I remember having a question in my head when I started one of the businesses that I have, and which is not the mortgage thing, because I work for a company called Levin's Home Mortgage. But when I've done some coaching businesses, consulting, and real estate investment stuff. there's a moment where you can do the thing that you want to make money with and be self-reporting to IRS. Everything's great, right? There's a moment when you transition
Yeah.
from your money and your name to something else,
Mhm.
right? I think a lot of people, and this could be my personal opinion, a lot of people might think, I don't need loans, I don't need the
Yeah.
SBA
Uh-huh.
until they need them,
Yeah.
right? So, what about a fledgling business that has a great idea? They've got a plan, or not, because I know you can help out with that, and they have a drive to do something. When does SBA come into it for the average business? I know it's a loaded question.
Yeah. So you made a great point where many people don't realize they need that access to capital until it's too late.
Yeah.
Right. I have came across that multiple times, and especially during the COVID pandemic, where people were just running through all their savings,
Mm.
running through their business
Ugh.
checking. Right now, they're in a desperate position. Then they go to the bank, and now they're not lendable. So, just a big statement that I like to give to all of my clients, people I'm working with: the best time to get money for your business is when you show you do not need it. If you are in a strong
Oh my
financial
gosh.
situation when you're preparing to get started, that's going to make you the most qualified individual to be lending money to when you show you don't need
Wait, I need you to stop because that is counterintuitive
yeah.
to what I think that 99% of the people that are going to hear this.
Hmm.
I don't have 10 million viewers, but
We'll get there.
anybody that will, yeah, right? Good answer.
Yeah.
That's not normal what you just said. If you
I
can
know.
repeat that again. So pay attention if you're listening or in your car or something, or you're watching on YouTube. Pay attention to what you just said. That's
Yeah.
huge.
So the best time to get money for your small business is when you show that you do not need it.
Mm.
If you start running out of your personal savings that you've been investing into the company, and then you go to the bank looking for that loan, you're not lendable.
Mm.
At that point, you don't show that you have the means to pay it back.
Yeah.
But if you have $50,000 in savings and you're looking to borrow $40,000 to get started, right? Maybe those numbers start to equate a bit more to make you more attractive. Right now, those are just some loose numbers. I would say
Right.
the average loan I work with people is about 250,000. So that's where they only need 10% equity injection in order to access that money. So if you have $25,000 of your own money, and of course you meet the other pre-qualification standards,
Mm-hmm.
business plan projections, etc., you have that ability to access up to 250,000. So I'm a big believer in using other people's money to grow your business. Now, I know interest rates are a bit high, and
Yeah.
sometimes people are afraid of that. But let's just say if the prime rate's at 8%, but the stock market's still growing, you follow the S&P 500, you earn 10% on your money, right? Can't promise or make any guarantees on that. It's just an example,
Yeah.
right? But
Nice
now you,
disclaimer.
right? But now you have a 2%
It's not
spread,
investment advice.
right? It's not investment advice, but now you have a 2% spread.
Yeah.
Right. And now you're able to borrow that money, that 8%, and maybe you're going to fetch a 22% net return on your business, right? You're earning a spread.
Mm-hmm.
You're protecting your personal assets. You don't have various laws in your favor, as many of these lending institutions may not be able to touch your personal retirement and pension as collateral, right? Because remember, the majority of businesses fail. I won't sugarcoat it, right? That's the F word I don't like to use, is
Yeah.
failure. But about 80% of businesses do fail within the first 5 years. Usually it's because of failure to plan and lack of capital.
Wow.
Right. So I work
Failure to
with
plan, lack of capital.
exactly right. So my goal is to work with people to ensure we have all of that in place to secure a solid business future.
Oh man.
Right. So we need to look at the whole picture. We need to figure out where a small business wants to go.
Yeah.
And we'll help them create that strategic plan to get there.
So what about credit? So when you first start to open a business,
Mhm.
people assume and think they might have one credit card they haven't used, and that might get them started with some whatever marketing supplies or whatever,
Yeah.
and that's business specific. But do you have to have great credit to consider these types of options? Are there options for people with everyday credit,
Yeah.
which I'm in the mortgage world, so to me, everyday credit would be 660, 680.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still in that sandbox if you've got something like
Yeah,
that?
100%. So I like that term, everyday credit.
Yeah.
SBA standard is 680 or above.
Okay.
Okay, so as long as you're at 680 or above,
That's not perfect credit.
No, it's not,
No.
but it's fairly good.
Yeah.
Right, but you'll still pass the credit check. So that is what they're looking for. They're looking for you to complete a personal financial statement. Right, we still need to look at household income, household debts, and it's important. Don't quit your day job before you apply for financing. They want to see that you have that continual W-2 income
Oh, that's huge.
coming into the household, right? So if you wake up one day, you want to start a business, and you're like, hey, this is going to work. I want to put in my 2 weeks notice. and I'm going to go apply for a loan in 30 days, you're no longer lendable. All right. I have seen that happen time and time again. Don't quit your day job. Work it into the business plan, or maybe you'll be able to phase out that job. Maybe you could drop down to a part-time basis until the business is picking up enough. But remember, you're personally guaranteeing the loan. So they are looking at your personal financials as you're getting started, and then they'll lend off the projections that we need to do.
I think what you just said between the F word that exists
Yeah.
and between understanding you should not go all in,
Mhm.
that's not what they're hearing on Instagram with the
I can't
the
stand
kids
the
that are making
influencers.
money and
Yeah.
millionaires. Like they're not hearing that, and
Mhm.
especially young people who are going to drive the next wave of small businesses. I think that's huge. Understanding that a lot of people fail and understanding why they fail. You added in the lack of planning and the lack of capital,
Exactly.
and then what you just said a second ago is huge. And it frustrates me almost when I see so much of the commercialization of just people's success.
Mhm.
You may see an Instagram post, and if it is legitimate, which it could be, that's one person out of millions
Yeah.
that figure that out. And there is a amount of ego, I guess, in a small business owner because you've got an idea and you think it's going to work, but you have to have realism.
Mhm.
And I think what you just said about not quitting your day job, like if you had to write down do's and don'ts, that's probably pretty high up there. But I know some people personally that did that, and they
Yeah.
say, "Well, I won't." You probably hear this. Well, I won't be able to give it my all if I have another job.
Yeah.
Then maybe you shouldn't do it. It might not be time yet,
Mhm.
or you have to restructure your business plan to scale.
Exactly. Build a business in baby steps. Right.
Build the business in baby steps. You got to put that in writing.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
build the business in baby steps. When I typically work on a plan, and again, every situation is different. Every person is different. Every goal that they want to achieve may be different
Sure.
than the next individual. So that's where we need to detail and curate this plan to meet their lifestyle, what their goals are in the future. But again, if you quit your day job and then you're looking for capital, you're not going to get funded.
Yeah.
Right. So we have to always take that into consideration and just build it out to follow what your future vision is. And where you
That's
want to be
great.
at.
Get good advice. Okay, so if you would do me the favor, let me go through like the first 5 things I can think of as steps if I want to start a business and if I was going to do it. Let me knock these 5 steps out and then come in and correct me or interject what you think should or shouldn't happen with your experience, which is way more than mine. So I guess number 1 would be you have an idea and you start to plan it out in some way. Write it down, make notes, save things, whatever. I guess number 2 would be understanding how you're going to structure your business. Is it going to be yourself, a spouse, a partner, outside of your family, and so forth? I guess number 3 would be what type of startup funds you're going to need. Do you have the money? Part of your plan will include operational expenses, obviously. And I guess number 4 would be figuring out who your customer is.
Mhm.
And then number 5 is, because I'm a marketing guy, is how do you go get business?
Yeah.
That was a very quick summary. Hope I didn't lose you. And I just kind of made that up right now. So, but like, if I'm sitting in front of you going, "Oh, Ryan, bada, 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 bada," where would you correct me or like come into play and say, "Let's talk about this"?
Yeah. So your number 4, I would move to number 1, which is
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Right. So
Okay.
it's the market research, customer discovery, etc. Right. We need to ensure that where you're setting up shop, let's say it's somewhere in Hartford County, and maybe you're selling a premium product that is a want. Right. It's not a need.
Got
And
it.
we know that in today's day and age, more Americans are struggling financially more than ever. Right. Credit card debt is at an all-time high.
Yeah, it's way up.
Does your consumer have the ability to buy this product? Can they shop for this in your local area of where you intend on opening up shop, right? So we have to do the market research. We need to do the customer discovery. And the goal here is to confirm the overall feasibility of the project.
So you said, I don't mean to cut you off,
Mhm.
customer discovery.
Yes, sir.
That sounds really official. Don't call me sir. You are too nice. I am not a sir.
It's a habit.
This is my show, but I am not a sir. Customer discovery. I feel like that is every day for you, but the audience might not know what you mean.
So let's break that down. So if we're working on a plan, especially to exceed SBA standard,
Okay.
and get that underwriting done, we're looking to know the customer demographic. Who's buying this product?
Yep.
So let's say, for an example, this is a common mistake that I see. And let's say you're in the food and beverage business.
Okay.
And
That's a great way to start.
you're selling food. right? Well, everyone needs food as fuel
It's a
to
need,
survive,
not a want.
right? So what I would tend to see on a business plan is, well, everyone needs to eat to survive, so therefore everyone's my customer. The bank will laugh at you if you have
Next.
that down in your business plan, right? So how do we need to structure this down? Customer demographics. What I like to pitch to my clients is pretend you are setting up a fake Facebook profile and you are looking like your customer. Who is that?
Hmm.
Maybe it's a 30 to 35-year-old female who lives
Age.
in Aberdeen, Maryland.
Gender.
She earns between $55,000 to
Income.
$65,000 a year. She is single. She has a bachelor's degree from the University of Maryland or Towson University. Right. So
Education
now we
level.
know her gender. We know her marital status. We know her income level, her education level. What are her spending habits? Where does she like to be advertised to? Right. Maybe it's Instagram and TikTok. Right. So that's where we need to understand who this customer is in its purest form. And we can use our market research capabilities, such as the Census Bureau,
I was going to ask you where to
citydata.com,
get the information.
right? You could also tap into potential small business librarians, which some library systems throughout the state of Maryland has small business librarians. You
Dude,
can use them for free.
I'm 43 years old. Never heard that term. I have 4 businesses. I've
Right,
never heard
right.
that term.
They will help you perform
Small
market
business
research.
librarian.
Yeah,
Write that down.
Not every county has it, but look into your county of where you're located at.
Okay.
And they can help you perform some market research.
Gold.
Right. So we need to know who this customer is. Do they have the disposable money? How do they want to be advertised to? And do they want your product? If we can't answer those questions, don't open the business. Don't put your money into something that you're not educated on. Right. So that's why customer discovery, market research is my number 1. 2, then we start the planning process.
Okay.
Right. So before we ever file our entity, before we invest any money into this business, plan it first. We need the internal roadmap, and we need to ensure we're going to have our ROI, our return on investment.
Huge.
Right? We have to
Huge
ensure
term.
that we're going to hit that. So let's put together that strategic roadmap. We need to identify the problem that we're solving. What is our solution? What is our overall market size and target market? How are we advertising to them? Who's our competitors? Direct, indirect, and future competition is what we need to analyze.
Wow.
Right? And we continue on and on throughout the business plan until we have that solid roadmap. Once we complete that, now we need to figure out the financial strategy. Are we personally investing in this? Are we raising money? Could we apply for grants, or is this not applicable for our for-profit business? Right? We go through that entire process,
Wow.
but it's vital that we break down our use of funds. So when we're going for an SBA-backed loan, we have to allocate every dollar that we are requesting. Right? So if we need $250K, how much is going towards rent? How much is going towards payroll for the first 6 months? Signage, marketing, security systems, whatever it may be.
Wow.
We need to allocate it all down and do our research. From there, financial projections, right? Let's start putting our money where our mouth is, figuring out how many people can we reasonably capture with the resources we
And
have.
financial projection is not best case scenario.
It's
most
reasonable
reasonable scenario.
right? Some people I could see where they are projecting out in January, they're going to do $200,000 their first month, right? That's probably not going to happen for the average small business owner.
Yeah.
So we need to bring that down, right? Almost
Reality
like a
check.
financial reality check. Exactly.
Nice.
Took the words
Nice.
right out of my mouth. Right. So we'll continue to break all of that down to ensure that it's feasible and it's reasonable. Right. And this is all based on a projected profit and loss statement. So your revenues, your cost of goods sold, gross profit, expenses, net profit. And what they're looking for is your net around the industry average.
Right?
Right.
Which they have data to.
Yes.
The
yes,
SBA
banks,
has the data.
underwriters, they will have the data to know the industry average, and you fall within that. And then from there, we can prove our concept, we submit our business plan and our loan package, and then you have the ability to get funded. Again, as long as you meet the income criteria, you meet the experience and past performance. So just to elaborate on that real quick, if you are a baker and all of a sudden you want to invest into a welding shop, right, but you have zero experience in welding, they're probably not going to approve you, right? We have to have that past performance / experience in the industry to justify that we are the right person to be wearing the title of CEO in this company. Right?
If you get a bug up your tail and want to start this business, if you're a baker and you want to be a welder owner, that's a legitimate concern, right?
Yeah.
You may have a fantastic plan, and I'm not saying your business is going to fail, but when the SBA is deciding whether to give you funding, that's a relevant thing. Now, if you're a baker and want to open up a mobile or a truck situation in your business,
completely different.
Completely different.
Yeah, the only way that you could potentially get funded without, and again, this is my experience, okay? So maybe using the word
Tapping into
only,
that, right?
right? It's not the best word to use, but franchisors tend to look for people that don't have experience in the industry. And if you're now going for an SBA backed loan to buy a franchise, they may not require that past performance.
Okay.
And the reason being is, let's say you want to open up a barbershop style salon, it's a franchise that you want to buy into. The franchisor prefers that you don't have bad habits. They don't want you coming in with your
Yeah.
15 years of being a barber and saying, "Oh, this is how we have to change this. We're going to change this business model a little bit and start to tweak it." No, no, no. You're following that step by step guideline. And now that you're getting brand recognition, you're getting training, you're getting marketing and accounting support. Because of that, they want to ensure that you are a manager. You can manage people, you can lead a team. And if you can do that, you're going to have a higher chance of getting approved for the loan, right? Banks love franchises because they have a proven track record.
It takes the place of the individual track record because they provide the past history of the franchise itself, correct?
Yep, you have the training.
Okay, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you have the whole team behind you. And mentioning team, something I want to throw out there real quick, Joe, is it's an acronym called the BAIL team, right? That's something,
BAIL?
correct. Yeah, that's something I preach to all of my clients. Assemble your BAIL team, who's your banker, your accountant, your insurance agent, and your lawyer, right? There
All
is,
right, so you got to stop right there. That is freaking gold.
yeah, your silent
So
partners.
if you are considering opening a business, if you don't have those 4 pillars to your business, it's probably not a good plan to begin with.
yeah,
You've got to have those things
we need to have
lined
them
up.
identified, right? So again, your banker, accountant, insurance agent, and your lawyer. Now, of course, for me, I should throw in a C there for consultant. However, we need those 4 pillars there because in order to get approved for the loan, right, we're going to need our certificate of insurance, right? You're going to need the counsel of a banker. You're going to need a counsel and an attorney to determine what entity should I be filing as.
Yeah.
Maybe there's purchase agreements, there's lease agreements that I need to have in place, right? And your accountant, you always got to have a good accountant. They're worth their weight in
Right.
gold to save you money at the end of the year and help you make those better financial decisions throughout that 12-month period.
The experience that I have was I only had the accountant when I did my first business. And when I called her, inadvertently, I put her in a position to be the consultant as well.
Mhm.
And I said, I've got this idea. I'm going to do this thing, knowing that a year from now, whether I succeed or fail, I'm going to be telling you, hey, I'm going to give you information on my tax return.
Yeah.
What should I or shouldn't I do for best practices? She gave me a lot of information.
Mhm.
It wasn't how to start the business and all that kind of stuff. I had to figure that on my own.
Yeah.
But even that little conversation, she said things to me such as, in Maryland, this is something that exists, doesn't somewhere else. I said, can I buy a vehicle? She said, well, right now there's this idea, 80% potential, blah, 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 right? I said, okay, great. I don't need one, but I asked that question, right? It's an important conversation to have. I think what I'm getting right now in this conversation is that there could be some tough conversations when you have a dreamer and then they try to put it on paper and you end up cutting up that dream, not to slash their dream, but you've got to match the pragmatism of a business owner to the dreamer. I imagine you've come across some situations where they don't necessarily meet.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
What do you do in that scenario when you recognize, because you're probably pretty good at seeing it already?
We tend to validate it through research.
Okay.
Right? And understanding what are their pitfalls, what are their
You showed
strengths. Right? Can you reasonably accomplish this on your own? And if you can't, it's going to cost what? It's going to cost money. And do you qualify for that capital to ensure that we can bring on the right people in this team to help you pull it off? And oftentimes, if they are the dreamer stage, they may not be cut out for it. Right?
Yeah.
They may not personally qualify. But that doesn't mean they necessarily need a loan to get started.
Right.
Maybe they do want to invest their own money. While, again, I am a believer in using other people's money, we have to get started somehow. Right, and many entrepreneurs
Responsibly, though.
Exactly, right. And many entrepreneurs I'm seeing today, they're looking to set up a side hustle. Right, they've been in their job for many years.
That's a pretty popular term right now.
But bills are getting higher. Right, I see
Yeah.
a lot of things out there about electric bills going through the roof with this
It's that time of year
we just had come through. Right, so what are people doing? Right, maybe they're driving for DoorDash or these third-party services. What many of these folks don't realize is now they're a sole proprietor. Right, they started their own business.
$600 in income.
Exactly, when they go through this, and they need to file taxes on it. Right, they're essentially their own small business at this point. It's a form of entrepreneurship, right? Just in a different stage and a different format.
Okay, so you just hit something that I was trying to figure out a way to lace into this conversation, and I just figured it out. So there are millions of Americans, because that's who we are as Americans, who may have a side hustle, cash-based business. It's low key. We're not talking about massive amounts of cash flow,
Yeah.
but they're making money,
Yeah.
right? How do I know if I'm one of them when it's a good time? Now, I'm going to flirt with this because obviously this is your business, right? So you don't have to like let your secrets out. But the average American who has found something that's creating cash flow, they're doing their market research right now, and they've found people not quitting a job yet. It's a side hustle, right? And it's all cash. They're collecting Venmo or a check going in their bank account, and they're not reporting it to the IRS. So I'm not having a conversation of the moral or legal concept of that. But when do you cross over to, okay, I've kind of had my fun. I've had a couple cash here and there that I might not tell the IRS about, but now I want to go to that next level. What is something you see in your experience that would suggest it's time to really lock up the BAIL you referred to and make this to the next level?
Right. So let's take all the little farm stands that we see around Hartford County.
Perfect example.
Right now, I'm always a big believer in compliance. We should pay our taxes. It's our obligation.
I think it's an American thing to do, not to cut
Right.
you off. I think it's an American thing to do to pay taxes because that is the way that our economy works. You can argue about it and vote politicians in or out because of it, but I think it's un-American to skip out on taxes.
Right. At the end of the day, we have to maintain compliance.
Yes.
But let's say that your little farm stand has a Facebook page, right? And you started with 5 followers.
Great example.
Now you have 100 followers, 500 followers. You're starting to get some great reviews about the breads that you're baking, the fruits and vegetables that you're selling. You're starting to get some brand recognition. Now, what would happen if that farm stand had an actual barn on Route 1 that is set up for retail? Right? If you were able to supply more, you could bring in community events, become a community hub. What would that look like for you? And could we qualify for that loan? Because again, maybe it's going to take $500,000 to fully have that vision of that bakery, farm attribute, etc., farm to table. You just need $50,000 of your own money to potentially qualify for it, right? And that's where we start working on a business plan. This is where I got started. These were the couple of dollars I was making on the weekend, but we have a proof of concept. We have a following on social media. We're getting some website views.
Those things factor into the conversation?
Yeah, because it starts proving the feasibility, and you're also justifying your past performance.
Feasibility, past performance.
You're justifying the past performance there.
That's great.
So, like, there's a lending institution that I work quite a bit with in Baltimore. We have about 5 clients going through their program right now, and they are always looking for past performance. Have you sold a product or successfully completed a service in the past? And if you've done that, that can justify you as that past performance.
So you can speak that language.
Exactly, right? And that's where working with the experts to curate that into the business plan that can hit the keywords of what these various underwriters, bankers, lenders are looking for, that's where we come into play. And that's where we partner with many small businesses in the area to put that together for you. And I want to just clarify something too. I am a big believer in the entrepreneur having an active being an active part of the process of their business plan, okay? So we don't just take it over and make up what it is you're going to do. We consult you.
Point.
We consult you throughout the process to understand what is your vision, what's your goal, and then we'll start taking your knowledge and where you want this company to be and what we know is going to be realistic and work to get you that access to capital, and we combine it together. And we work together to ensure that it's going to meet or exceed that standard to get you the money that you need to get launched or expand.
Man, my head's going 100 miles an hour. This is just freaking gold, man. So, okay, I like what you said about that because the most important thing that I think you said is compliance, and that scares some people. It pisses off some other people.
Yeah,
but if you want access to the sandbox that we're talking about, you got to play by their rules.
Exactly.
And their rules are disclosure and compliance. Within that world, though, there's also the side where I come on home lending is if you do it the right way, you show the IRS what you did make, you make reasonable deductions, you're going to have business income to add to your family's equation. And one day, if you want to get home financing, automobile financing, or future business financing, you then have a record of it. Mm-hmm. That's another positive benefit of going through the system the right way, filing your taxes if you need to file taxes, because you can start to use it for income. Yeah. I have so many people come to me and say, oh, well, I don't have this, but I have this. And what they don't have is tax returns, which is like, okay. But I've seen cash flow of $8,000 or $9,000 a month on a side hustle that I'm just like, that's really impressive,
Yeah.
but that's a zero
Yeah.
to me in the lending world.
Yeah.
And they certainly can and are living a lifestyle from their income, which is every American's right.
Right.
But then they want to go get a home,
Mhm.
put down $100,000 cash on an $800,000 house. God bless them.
It's almost like if you don't claim it, it doesn't exist.
That's quite literally the reality of it. And I'm not saying to claim it because you can buy a house one day, but it all goes into the circle of if you're going to start a business, you have a great plan.
Mhm.
You have these 4 people plus the 5th one, which is the consultant, you in this case.
Yeah.
You start doing it the right way. You actually find something feasible and reasonable, and you make money from it. If you claim it, you can go back and scale it and grow it.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a scalable concept of a business that does not do it the right way, does not file tax returns, does not get funding when it's time. And it's more dangerous, I would think, for the entrepreneur as well, because you don't have the consistency of these guardrails.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we see it all day, every day. And like what I was saying previously, it's all about the goal and your vision for your future with your family, right? And that's where we can work together to determine those strategies, what should be on paper, what needs to be on paper, and it's not going to help you achieve your goals in the future. So yeah, it's all a big picture, but we're figuring out that chunk by chunk on how do we get there and how are we going to do it.
All right, let's lighten the mood a little bit because this is like some real gold. Hopefully, the people listening are writing stuff down like, oh my God. And I will give you every way possible to get a hold of him after this because you're just an amazing amount of resources. You're so well spoken, Ryan.
I appreciate it.
But let's have some fun.
Yeah.
You have been doing this for a while. You've exposed in the business world to so many different things, right? America's great because it's so diverse. I have ideas, people. So what is the wackiest idea that you've ever seen? Weird, and that doesn't mean bad. It just means really off the wall. And if you can't give really big specifics, I obviously understand it's no big deal.
Yeah, so there was one a couple of years ago, probably 5 to 6 years ago, and it was a client that wanted to do something in their car, and it would actively take time, distraction, etc., while driving, and end up losing a little bit of visibility. So we were able to kind of really talk this through and realize that it may not actually be safe, and therefore there was going to be potentially increased liability by pursuing with this idea, right? So part of my job as a consultant is to play devil's advocate, right? Maybe in a positive way, but really just to get them thinking of different scenarios, ideas, the application of it. And after about an hour-long phone call, the client decided to wipe away that idea and then came back a few months later with something else. But this would have been a total safety disaster while driving. So that was probably the craziest one that I've had. And there's always a few get kind of squirted in there throughout the years.
I feel like you just said something totally cool because you're not a yes man.
Yeah.
Right? You're the realist that says, I appreciate your idea. Tell me as much you can about it. And after that, you're applying your experience to that.
What if? Yeah.
And you got to prepare for the worst, hope for the best, right? Yeah. And if the end result of that is not something viable, it's not necessarily a no. It just means this idea it doesn't have the feasibility that we need.
Right. Maybe there's a different reiteration of it. Maybe there's a way that we can modify it to where it could work. And that's where we always need to refine it down, do that feasibility study like we had talked about, and we can eventually get it there. But some things come with modifications, so we need to customize it every time.
Oh, that's great, man. That's cool. That was a cool answer, and I'm glad you didn't say anything about your customers. Yeah. With all due respect to them.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. Right. So that's where again we've seen some just wild, crazy ideas, and I'm never going to tell someone their idea is bad.
No, absolutely.
But market research, right, can validate it. Whether it's going to work or not, is this going to be worth our efforts? And sometimes people will fight back on me on it, and that's okay. At the end of the day, it's up to you, right? It's your money on how you want to spend it and invest it. My goal is to give you the tools, the education, the resources, and the knowledge to make the best decision possible. But again, at the end of the day, that's what you put money into. That's up to you. I wouldn't be an investor, no.
So that brings up a second evolution of that. Not this idea, obviously, with that, and all due respect to that business idea person, if they listen to us talk. But what about the other side where you have a business idea that was kind of wacky, but you had to go through a maturation process with your client
Mhm.
and you were able to make some tweaks to make it feasible and reasonable?
Yeah, so we have a client right now in Hartford County. I can't give out personal information or
Absolutely.
identify that business, but what I can say is we started working together in 2019,
Okay.
and we were working together to build out that business plan. And then what happened the next year? COVID.
Yeah.
Right, we completely pivoted that business model.
Smartly.
We had to get more into a delivery type business. We've now going on 5 years in. They've been killing it,
Mm.
and we're working on an expansion plan now. And their goal is to have 50 to 100 privately owned locations. And I
Wow.
truly believe that these guys can do it.
So the scaling concept is
Yeah,
above an idea at this
yeah,
point. It's location geographically to
yeah,
scale and move out.
yeah, and
And you
um,
pivoted from the original idea.
yeah, we had to pivot. Yeah, 'cause they wanted to go into a certain industry where I knew there was going to be significant barriers and roadblocks
Okay.
just based on my knowledge of doing this for so long. And they listened and they followed the business plan, and their projections were on point. They surrounded themselves with the right people. They acknowledged what their weaknesses were
Mm.
and were able to fix that by bringing on the right team. And
Wow.
they are killing it. I'm so proud of them because it all just started with an idea. They put a little bit of their own money into it, and they're doing fantastic. And
Great job of not giving any specifics to that scenario. But with respect to your client,
yeah,
right?
of
Like 'cause
course.
I don't want
Yeah.
the idea to
Hmm.
IB about it.
Yep.
But that's super cool. I had a feeling that you had something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then here's the third version and final of that question.
Hmm.
What's something that you originally were like, what in the world? But it was a very feasible and viable concept.
Just I'm going to go into the government contracting side of this.
Okay.
The U.S. government is the world's largest buyer, and they spend approximately $500 billion a year with small businesses. So I work quite a bit with government
Wow.
contractors, especially in the veteran community, and getting them registered as veteran small business or service disabled veteran small business. And when companies have those certain certifications behind their name, they have set asides, and that means a certain percentage of money and contract allocations are set aside for people with those certifications.
Okay.
And things down to selling napkins and pens
Hmm.
to the government could make someone rich. So just hearing that, like, yeah, I want to distribute paper items to the federal government. This is how we're going to do it. These are our
Wow.
projections. Here's our roadmap. We need help with this certification, and getting set up in SAM.gov, which is the Systems of Award Management, which is where all federal procurement is going to go through. And they kill it. They kind of find a niche that no one else is really doing,
Wow.
something that people aren't focused on. But the government, again, they spend a lot of money. They have to work with small businesses. And if you can put yourself in that corner
Yeah.
that no one else is really focusing in, there's some allocations for you. Right. So there's
Oh,
some of
I
the wildest
love
things
that.
that you wouldn't imagine. Someone getting rich off of napkins. It can happen.
I mean, I've got a nice blend of dreaming and pragmatism, but I saw a movie like, oh god, like 10 years ago about automobiles, and I think it was Jeff Bridges was part of it, but his idea was to bring windshield wipers to the car. Now, I forget the whole purpose of the movie, but the reason I'm bringing it up now is it made me think of something, and I'm 43, it was in my 30s, so I was into the world at that point, right? The trickle down effect of the little pieces of a car that are not made at GM,
Yeah.
like the ball
Yeah.
bearings or the windshield wipers, right? Those are very massive volume businesses that are not necessarily what you think of when you hear on TV the automobile industry, right?
Yeah.
But the trickle down is so huge. I mean, the rubber and the tires,
Mhm.
right? Things like that. And so when you mentioned the straws and napkins, it just clicked for me
Yeah,
that like,
everything is contracted out. It's
yeah,
rarely produced in house. It's small businesses that are doing it. Or there's, of course, the big guys, what they call the prime
hmm,
contractors, which are like your Boeing's, your Lockheed's, etc.
yeah,
But they still sub in small business,
hmm,
right? They need that support. They have to bring them in, and that's where we can work with small companies
right,
to set them up to be prepared for that. Typically, what we want to show is 2 years of experience in the business to justify to the government that we have ran our company,
yeah,
we're going to be around, we have the past performance that
Past
we keep
performance,
talking about,
key terms,
right? And that's
yeah.
going to help you set up for federal procurement. And then even once you get that down, don't forget state, local, towns, cities, municipalities,
Yeah.
all government entities that have their own procurement programs, right?
Oh, man.
There's money in the crumbs, and a lot of people overlook
crumbs.
that, right? They're
Oh,
solely
what a
focused,
good term.
right? They're solely focused on federal contracting, DOD,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah, and then
But you can still work on the county level. Get yourself started. Many people are overlooking it. There's a market there.
awesome. Oh, man, what a cool idea.
All right, guys, I just finished editing this episode that you're watching right now, and I had to cut this in two, guys. There's so much information that you couldn't possibly wrap your brain about everything. There's another 23 minutes of footage uncut that I'm going to release as a second podcast with Ryan on it. Hope you enjoyed. If you haven't already, subscribe, and then I'm going to go ahead and bring this back in a couple days from now for the second part. Appreciate your time. Hope you enjoyed the content.